Opened early, under budget, and welcomed by almost everyone. And when was the last time you heard us say anything about a new road scheme in that kind of way? Well, the Hindhead Tunnel may have many firsts, but it is in fact the last road scheme of its kind that we are likely to see in the next decades. It actually removes the notorious bottleneck on the A3 between London and Portsmouth. At peak times, tailbacks could stretch 10 miles. Now, here's a few facts for you about the tunnel. There's 4 miles of new road here. The tunnel is just over a mile long, and it cost £371 million. Now, if you work that out, that's about £142,000 per yard, making it the second most expensive road, yard for yard, in the country. Now, we can also reveal here on South Today that they did consider making this a toll road. We'll have more of that later on. Now, over here, this is the southbound carriageway. This is the one that was opened for business earlier on today. Fairly fluid, the traffic has been all day. This is the northbound carriageway, and they expect to open this part on Friday. They reckon 36,000 cars a day will be using this route. Well, Roisin Gorson has looked back on a big day for motorists.
Traffic queues and Hindhead go hand in hand, but today traffic was building up for a different reason. Each wanted to be one of the first to travel through the new tunnel. 9 years in the planning, 4.5 years in the building, and Britain's newest tunnel is finally open. It's just over a mile long, which might not seem very much, but to commuters, it'll cut the journey times between London and Portsmouth by up to 40 minutes.
It was really good, really good. We were beeping to all of the workers, and it was fantastic. It was such a long-awaited project.
Absolutely brilliant. I even set a camera up on the tripod in the car and taken a video. I haven't seen it yet, but we'll have a little look in a minute. I expect, you know, I grew up around here and we've been waiting just for it to go through. So I had to be here this morning to be one of the first ones through it.
This trickle will eventually become 36,000 vehicles a day. It may be only hours in, but already the tunnel is having a huge effect on the amount of traffic travelling through Hindhead. We're going northbound and it's still a nightmare, but southbound there's hardly any traffic. But all that'll change at the weekend when the tunnel opens in both directions. It's been described as a sad day for local traffic news reporters, but it's been widely celebrated here. Roisin Gorson, BBC South Today, Hindhead.
Well, it's been a 30-year-long wait for this tunnel to be opened. Uniquely among big road schemes, it was universally wanted by, well, most people. But it was postponed time and time again because of the cost. Here's our transport correspondent, Paul Clifton.
For decades, the traffic lights at Hindhead have been the biggest bottleneck on the main road between Portsmouth and London. The need for a bypass was agreed by the government 33 years ago, in 1978. For the lorry drivers who use this road every day, the tunnel will transform the journey.
You can be sat in the traffic for 20, 25 minutes. Most places that we deliver to, you've got booking time, so you have to get there on time. Others, it mucks your day up.
4 years ago, ground clearance finally started, and this valley was seen for the last time. It was to be filled in with the spoil from the tunnel. It was like digging through a giant sandpit. Each time the machines scraped away a couple of meters of soft sandstone, steel rods were forced through, and the walls were sprayed with quick-setting concrete to hold them up. The diggers worked from both ends of the tunnel at once. Eventually, they met in the middle.
We were within about 35 millimetres, which is 1.5 inches in old money, so very close and bang on level, so we were very pleased.
The tunnel itself was largely completed a year ago, under budget. It's taken since then to build the roads either side and fit safety equipment. Paul Clifton, BBC South Today, Hindhead.
Now, the Hindhead Tunnel may bring relief for commuters on the A3, but there are many other bottlenecks across the region. Now, among the roads in need of improvements are the A27, for example. It regularly gets jammed at Chichester, Arundel and Worthing, and various bypass schemes have all been shelved. The A303 at Stonehenge, plans to build a tunnel there were scrapped in 2007. And the A32 at Gosport is often congested. A rapid bus scheme is being built, but it may not solve the problems. However, there are no firm plans for any of these roads because it all comes with a huge price tag. Now, as you saw, the Transport Secretary cut the ribbon earlier on today, and he confirmed that there is a shift away from big road schemes.
I wouldn't call it make, do and mend, but there is a definite shift. You know, in difficult times, we have to use the resources we've already got, the infrastructure we've already built and paid for, to its absolute maximum effect to speed journeys and make them more predictable.
Well, now, it's the longest underland tunnel in the country, 1.25 miles, and it's packed with high-tech safety features. But we need to be prepared for the worst. The emergency services do certainly, and only yesterday you may have heard that there was a serious fire in a tunnel in South Wales. A stretch of the M4 motorway closed for hours after a lorry caught fire in a tunnel. Thankfully, no one was injured. It's a scenario they've rehearsed at Hindhead. The tunnel here is also designed to be fire resistant.
The worst case scenario is a large heavy goods vehicle or even an oil tanker being ignited for some reason and not being able to get out of the tunnel. And then you're talking about intense fires for a couple of hours or more.
Drivers can also escape to the other tunnel using special doors every 100 metres. The tunnel is monitored around the clock by a control room where staff are watching more than 100 CCTV cameras. There are radar units which spot slow or stopped vehicles, even bicycles which are banned, as these riders discovered when they staged a sneaky shortcut ahead of the official opening.
The persons on the bicycles, please exit the tunnel. You are being recorded.
Those safety announcements are automatically relayed over your car radio.
There is congestion ahead. Please remain in your vehicle and switch off the engine.
A tunnel was chosen because of the environmental benefits. Now, the old A3 runs across the Devil's Punch Bowl, a beautiful landmark. The old road will be covered up into one giant wildlife wonderland. But as Joe Kent reports, it was the environmental lobby which pushed those concerns to the forefront.
This is what the tunnel preserves and enhances. The Devil's Punch Bowl and Hindhead Common, both important and protected heathlands. The tunnel's what many would have liked to have seen here on the M3 at Twyford. It was ruled out for being too costly. Environmental campaigners fought hard to protect the countryside, but the scheme was completed in 1995. Those protests at Twyford paved the way for the Third Battle of Newbury, as thousands of environmentalists protested over the destruction of more than 100 acres of woodland to build the Newbury bypass. The costs of policing and protecting the workers meant it ran tens of millions of pounds over budget. A tunnel at Hindhead became the preferred option after a successful campaign against a road widening scheme. In 1997, with a new Labour government, money in the banks and the memory of those anti-road protests fresh in politicians' minds, it was given the go-ahead. On this occasion, the environment's a winner. The landscape restored after decades divided by the A3 dual-carriageway.
With the road gone, it will give connectivity and it will allow things like snakes, lizards, butterflies, small insects to move from one part of the property to another. With larger blocks of heath, there's more chance they will survive. There will be areas where they can still get food, where they can still take shelter. In a small fragmented pocket, they haven't got a hope in hell, really.
Already, new walking and cycle routes are being created in preparation for an increase in visitors looking to enjoy the new tranquility. A cafe could become a visitor centre. Nature was at the forefront of this project, something which owes a debt to the environmental protests of the 1990s. Joe Kent, BBC South Today.
We're live at the Hindhead Tunnel on the Hampshire-Surrey border. Now, it may just be 1.25 miles long, but its impact stretches far and wide. And also coming up in this programme, we'll be hearing from the band.
Well, the big story of the day is, of course, the long-awaited opening of the Hindhead Tunnel. Let's rejoin Sally there now. Sally.
Thank you very much, Alan. We should remind everybody that it's the southbound carriageway that is open, not the northbound. Northbound is expected to open on Friday. We're hearing from people tonight that there are massive queues going north because they're still going through the town of Hindhead, that notorious bottleneck, of course, which is just over there, about half a mile. The traffic lights there, still a problem for many people going north. So bear that in mind. But many of the businesses in that town are actually thinking of pulling out. Alan Sinclair is assessing the impact on the town itself of Hindhead.
We'll have to wait and see, but it's going to be a heck of a lot less than it is at the moment.
Yes, absolutely.
Excavation work shook their home to its foundations. The temporary diversion sent traffic thundering past. Yet for this couple, the promise of a new lease of life for Hindhead far outweighs the recent hassle.
The house did shake and vibrate quite violently on occasions, but it was relatively short-lived.
Property prices aren't expected to soar, but quicker journeys will have an impact.
It's going to shave off 20 minutes. And actually for a lot of people who say they want to be within an hour of London, that means that they might even contemplate being another 10, 15, 20 minutes south of Hindhead.
But could turning the existing main road into a cul-de-sac at the Devil's Punch Bowl end up leaving Hindhead a dead-end town? The council has a vision of a new town square with shops and homes, but there'll soon be no passing trade. The petrol station closed last month. The land is up for sale, as is the salvage yard opposite.
I actually don't see commercial businesses like smaller shops and restaurants working particularly well here. Because I don't think they'll get throughput.
The traffic has harmed Hindhead, but it could be years before we know the real impact of taking it away. Alan Sinclair, BBC South Today.
Let's look at the wider economic impacts now, because joining me here at the Hindhead Tunnel is Maureen Frost from the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce. If we just look further down towards Portsmouth for the moment, I mean, is this tunnel economically going to create business, going to create jobs?
We believe it certainly will do. It's a bit of a cliche, but time is money as far as businesses are concerned. And it's a key concern when people are looking to relocate, whether they can move their people and their goods quickly from one place to another. And one thing we really think will help is recruitment, because a number of people do not want to take a job either side of the tunnel before the tunnel was open,
yeah,
because
that's
they just
interesting.
couldn't get there.
Exactly, can't get from A to B, can they, quickly? Can I just talk about the passenger terminal at Portsmouth, because they built a new one down there, didn't they? And what they're saying is one major factor was the opening of this road.
Yes, absolutely, because if you look at the ports of Portsmouth and Dover, now with this tunnel, the travel time from London to either of them is about the same. So it really will give people a valid choice.
It's quite interesting, Brittany Ferries have already started an ad campaign saying it's quicker to get to Portsmouth now from London than it is to get to Dover.
That's right, they have, and that leads us nicely into what the hoteliers in the Portsmouth area are doing as well, where they've started a light at the end of the tunnel campaign, because they acknowledge with the 2012 Games coming up that, again, it is getting that message across that how quick it is to travel.
Now, you were on the steering committee considering this as a toll road. What happened? Why didn't that happen?
It's quite an interesting experience, but it all boiled down to the cost-benefit ratio. And in the end, if they had to decide to toll it, it would have needed tolling plazas at either end of the tunnel. That would have meant 12-lane carriageways, extra cost of land, extra cost of construction, manning, maintenance, tolling plazas. And the study actually found that it would take 30 years to repay that extra cost.
Maureen Frost, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Well, now, the engineering and technological first of this project has been really watched on a particular website, because Dave Wareham from Borden has been writing a blog on the tunnel for more than 3 years. It's had more than 100,000 hits and was popular with many of the tunnel workers. But he's missed the big opening because he's on holiday. How unfortunate is that? Well, let's now go a little bit back further in history now, and not the blogs of today, but really what was happening here hundreds of years ago. And Duncan Mirrlees is from the Surrey History Centre. This was a really important route, Portsmouth to London, wasn't it?
To put it very simply, this road was one of the most important roads in the history first of England and then of the United Kingdom. It connected London, the capital city, with the most important naval base to the south at Portsmouth. And anybody who was anybody in British naval history had to travel up and down this road. There was no other way to get there unless you wanted to go by boat all the way around the south coast. And this was much quicker.
And if we're going back right down to Tudor times, I assume, and Henry VIII,
yes,
and way beyond that.
Come up and
if we
down.
bring it a bit sort of, up to modern times and talk about D-Day, I understand that this road was full of military vehicles at one stage.
My dear aunt, who was a nurse during the Great War, the Second World War, I should say, remembers seeing this road lined with Canadian and American military vehicles, all revving their engines up at once, and the noise and the smoke was indescribable. It stuck in her memory till the day she died, and she moved to Canada because she was very friendly with the Canadian troops.
All right, so she remembers that. And
yes.
very swiftly, this was known as a kind of healthy area for writers, as well as Arthur Conan Doyle.
Arthur Conan Doyle moved here. He built a house here and moved in 1897, and alas, his wife died about 6 years later.
Here as well.
Oh yes, Lord Tennyson
Obviously
was the
en route
first.
to the Isle of Wight.
That's right, that's right, yes.
Duncan, we'll leave it there, but thank you so much. I know there's masses of history there. Don't go away, thank you so much.